When is the last time Virginia Tech has won a big game? I mean a big game, like they won at the Horseshoe in front of over 107,000 on Saturday night. Mark Rogers TV talking Hokies and Buckeyes after Virginia Tech. I'm going to stop short of saying shocking win, because if you take into consideration the circumstances surrounding this game, some could see it coming. Virginia Tech over Ohio State 35-21. If you measure up the recruiting rankings per player on each roster, yes, the Buckeyes are more talented, but this Virginia Tech team was prepared to play, and right now they're a better football team than Ohio State. They may not be a better football team than the Buckeyes in Week 10 or Week 11 or Week 12, but right now Virginia Tech better than Ohio State. And where does it start? It's the quarterback comparison. Michael Brewer, the stats don't tell the story. 23 of 36 for a $199, 2 interceptions to go with 2 touchdowns. But this kid was tough in the pocket. He was very aware, and he threw a beautiful football on this night. He's a precision passer. He really put it in the receiver's hands, put it on the receivers, and he was just a gamer on this night. I was extremely impressed with this kid. This is the first time I've seen him play. The Texas Tech transfer really acquitted himself. If you're going to see Michael Brewer throw one pass from this game, go to what basically was the game-winning touchdown pass against Ohio State here. The touchdown that he threw on 3rd down to Buckeyes Hodges, when continually Virginia Tech could not run the ball, could not run it against Ohio State. Nobody's going to be able to run the football against the Buckeyes this season, but they can throw it, and Virginia Tech could throw it, and specifically Brewer. Check out the touchdown pass that broke the 21-all tie to Buckeyes Hodges in the corner of the end zone. That was beautifully thrown from pretty much middle hash all the way to the left corner to beat the Ohio State defender. I believe it was Eli Apple in the corner of the end zone, or possibly Von Bell there for the Buckeyes. Virginia Tech again wins it 35-21. The Buckeyes still had a chance at 28-21, and then the big interception down the sideline by Donovan Riley, 63-yard interception return, when the Buckeyes, JT Barrett, credit him. Don't look at the stats. We'll give them to you. 9 for 29, 219 yards. So everything he completed was downfield to Michael Thomas in particular, Devin Smith with a big catch, and Dontre Wilson as well. So Barrett gets the most out of those throws, but 9 for 29 speaks less to his inaccuracy and more to that vaunted Virginia Tech pass rush. Okay, so the Buckeyes offensive line having all sorts of issues, which we keep hearing the excuses on the national shows, on the pregame, during the game, of losing 4 offensive linemen who are now in NFL camps. The big elite powers in college football lose players. Pick your school, pick your team. If you go to the very elite of college football, where Ohio State is supposed to be, they lose players, and they have to replace them. So for Ohio State to continue to talk about, not necessarily Ohio State, but people to talk about Ohio State losing 4 offensive linemen, sure they did. They need to replace them, and replace them in a hurry. The pass protection was atrocious in this game. Part of the problem was JT Barrett being very unaware of that pressure. He should have thrown the ball away a few times or found a receiver. He was unaware, continues to be unaware, but again, it's 2 games for a redshirt freshman, and mostly it was the inability of the Ohio State offensive line to handle that Virginia Tech front. When you talk about Daddy Nicholas, Derek DiNardo, and Dion Clark, Virginia Tech totaled 6 sacks in this game and 11 tackles for loss. The other big missing part for the Ohio State Buckeyes is running the football. JT Barrett was the ground game. He was the ground game basically against Navy as well. Carlos Hyde, he's off to the NFL. But again, Ohio State's supposed to reload. So between Curtis Samuel and Ezekiel Elliott, 13 carries for 58 yards. That is not Carlos Hyde. That's not Eddie George. That's not Beanie Wells, and on and on and on, that you expect out of an Ohio State backfield. So they miss Carlos Hyde. They don't have that type of running back in the backfield. These guys are top recruits, but they have yet to pull through and play like top recruits. Curtis Samuel's just a true freshman, and Ezekiel Elliott is a Just a sophomore for the Buckeyes. The other thing with Ohio State that's tough to watch is in the special teams, they can't return a kickoff very far, despite having Dontre Wilson, and he's got great speed, but he doesn't have 1 in a million speed. There are other guys in college football who are just as fast, and each team has 2 or 3 of those guys. So Dontre Wilson is electric, but he has not separated himself a la DeAnthony Thomas, Percy Harvin. And so Dontre Wilson hasn't been able to bring the ball back to give the Buckeyes consistent field position. Then the other thing that we typically don't see out of Ohio State, missed field goals, and that proved extremely costly because instead of 28-21 and JT Barrett trying to bring them back in the final 2 minutes, it would have been 28-27. Sean Nuremberger missed 2 makeable field goals, I believe from 40 and 27 yards. Otherwise, Ohio State's within 10 or 15 yards of field goal range in the last minute of play before Barrett throws the desperation pick to Riley. Let's get back to Virginia Tech, because this is mostly about them and what they're trying to accomplish, and coming back from 15-11 the last 2 years, 7-6 and 8-5, to get back to a top 10 football program and to make a charge in the ACC. Well, this game had nothing to do, of course, with the ACC standings, but this is going to be one of the better football teams that they play in a hostile environment, and Virginia Tech came through. Now, they're not going to face or the Buckeyes would be a better matchup later in the season. We would expect JT Barrett and that offensive line, those issues to clear up to a certain extent, but man, Virginia Tech has not defeated a top 10 team since West Virginia in 2004, when the Mountaineers were ranked number 6 in the country. It's been a while for Virginia Tech beating a really, really good football team. So again, it was the pass rush. It was limiting those Ohio State playmakers on the outside, running the football. They did give up plays downfield, and that was pretty much the strategy. Let's make JT Barrett beat us downfield, and he did that 6 or 7 times, but he didn't do it consistently enough. So they were willing to give up the big play several times, and Ohio State completed for more than 24 yards per reception. Again, the big plays, but not enough of them, and couldn't mount a consistent passing attack because JT Barrett's just not at that point in his stage of development. And Virginia Tech gambled, and they won in that category. And again, it was the play of Michael Brewer at quarterback. Virginia Tech couldn't run against Ohio State, but Brewer, it was all on his shoulders offensively, and he came through. That was extremely impressive. 25 consecutive wins in the regular season for the Buckeyes down the drain. First time they lose a home opener since 1978 against Joe Paterno in Penn State, with Art Schlichter, if you remember that name, starting his first game as a freshman quarterback at Ohio State. And 64 consecutive regular season wins against unranked opponents at the shoe. That comes to an end, and it's kind of interesting that the last loss that the Buckeyes had against an unranked opponent at home was Florida State unranked in 1982 against the Buckeyes and Mike Tomczak. So that's pretty much the rundown that we have from this Virginia Tech Ohio State showdown in the shoe. The Buckeyes have to lick their wounds and come back. Virginia Tech has to feel good about this and then build upon it and get into the ACC, where they will take on the likes of North Carolina, Pitt coming off a decent win over Boston College, Duke, and some of the teams that they will face again in the Coastal Division and trying to get back to the ACC championship game. So huge win for the Hokies. Would love to hear what you have to say about this one. Buckeyes, Hokies, right here on Mark Rogers TV.